The planet is heating up.
The oceans are becoming filled with plastic.
Change starts now. Change starts now.
We're on a countdown
To zero waste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast. Here's your host, Laura Nash.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zero Waste Countdown podcast and radio show. Today, we're speaking with Dave Hill from PowerNot, and he has a wonderful invention, a machine that's working really well to reduce food waste. So, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Morning, Laura. Thanks for having me.
So, tell us what PowerNot is and the machine that's been developed.
So, first of all, I didn't develop it, so I don't want to take credit for that. So, I'm not that intelligent. So, there's a lot more clever people than me that put this together. So, to explain the PowerNot Digester, the LFC, simply, it really is like a stainless steel human stomach. So, if you imagine anything that can go into your body, that you eat, that you process, can go into the digester as well. And really, we take what a process that would normally take, 6 to 8 weeks to, transfer food. We turn that process into an average 6 to 8 hours that we turn food waste into nutrient-rich grey water.
Wow.
So that's the basics of the machine in a very simplistic explanation.
And so this is going to cut back on a lot of space that people would need and a lot of transportation that people would need to send their food elsewhere. So you're cutting down on emissions, I would assume, as well, if you don't have to transport those green bins away to a high heat compost facility. So it seems like it would be very good for a lot of companies.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The best way to explain it is you can treat it at source. Mm-hmm. So if you're in a kitchen or a galley, as you're literally cutting, chopping your food, prepping your food, or you have waste food coming back from dishes, you can instantly put that, have the machine in your kitchen. There's zero smell from the machine, zero odor. Open the door, just a little hatch, throw your food in, and really just forget about it. So, for galleys and restaurants, it's huge for them because they can treat everything at source. Like you say, there's no more transportation costs anymore. There's no more pickups. There's no more, smelly bins and back alleys that are, attracting rodents and flies and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, everything's treated at source, which in all round is better for the environment, as you say.
That's wonderful. And I think back to when I waitressed at a restaurant, it seems like a very long time ago. And I wonder, how could that restaurant get rid of their food scraps in an ethical way? And I thought, if they ever got some of the flies into their restaurant from the green bin, sitting outside and the door open or whatever, and there were flies in the restaurant, that would really, really, really hurt their business. Like if people were eating in a nice restaurant that had some flies in it, like that would be some really bad news. So I'm always thinking, like, how do you get rid of it so quickly? Like you would have to have a daily pickup or something, but this sort of solves that problem. So tell us how it doesn't smell.
What our process is aerobic digestion.
Mm-hmm.
So aerobic digestion is in the presence of oxygen. So basically the machine, takes the blend of enzymes that we've created, the power chips, and we add oxygen into the machine. It occurs naturally when we open the hatch. When you physically open the door, oxygen is entered, and we also have a small basically oxygen pump. We don't create oxygen, but we take oxygen from the atmosphere and then it goes into the machine all the time when it's running. So all these processes add together basically speed up the aerobic digestion massively. So, within 6 to 8 hours, usually the bulk of food is gone. The machines run best on a varied diet, which is very easy for most places, because they have a varied menu. So
mm-hmm.
The varied diet is how the machines run at their best. So, like I say, it's all these things come together, and then basically at the end of the process, it creates the grey water. So that's in a nutshell how it works.
Mm-hmm.
And our machines, the main thing, they do rotate the food. So the paddles rotate the food, and they run, for 15, 20 minutes. They can vary the direction forward and backwards. We can change the time depending on the type of food. If it takes a little bit more time to, process, we can vary the amount of water that's injected into the machine. Because, the food waste in general, it's about 80% water in the food. Mm-hmm. So depending what type of food, we do get some machines in specific, plants, processing facilities. We have them in cheese factories. We have them in, just chicken, restaurants. So they have a more direct diet. So we can fine tune the machine slightly if needs be. We work with a lot of island communities and a lot of areas like that. We've machines in the Maldives, we have machines in the Great Barrier Reef. We're doing quite a few of the cruise ships, private islands. So they take guests to private islands and then they have facilities ashore. So we're fitting machines all over their private islands. And then we're doing some remote fishing lodges as well in BC, just off Vancouver Island. We have some machines fitted there. Been running for a couple of years now. So the islands, of course, we can help there a lot with their food waste because, it's difficult for them to process it. So,
That's great because I was in Grand Cayman and I talked about this a little bit before, but the dump is now the highest part of the island and you can see it from pretty much everywhere on the island. So the trash just has piled up so high and they have some really nice reefs around the island and I would assume that it's, leachate is going into those reefs. So I don't know how long the reefs will be able to stand that. And just walking around the Port Authority there, like everyone's still serving stuff in plastic cups and single use this and that. So it's like you can see this giant problem literally looming over you every single day. And yet people still are consuming all this trash and adding to it every day, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty shocking to hear. It's the highest point in the island. That's
Grand Cayman. Yeah,
I'm really surprised to hear that. Yeah, it's not great news, is it? So we're helping islands as much as we can, and that's somewhere we're really, really happy to be involved with as well.
Oh, that's really good. So, if I remember correctly from my days at sea, gray water we can pump out into the ocean, right? That was never really my job, but I think that's how it works. Like black water, there's a lot of regulations. It has to be disposed of properly. Is that right? That you can still put gray water into the ocean?
Yeah. Basically, all your marine regulations are governed under MARPOL. So you're correct in saying that under MARPOL, grey water regulations are pretty loose. So there's really not any specific regulations under MARPOL for grey water. What you do have is when you go into different areas, different special areas, off the top of my head, areas like Alaska, the Great Lakes, maybe some inland waterways in Europe, areas like special areas that they've designated themselves, there is much stricter requirements for grey water. But you're right in saying in general, there's very little regulation for grey water worldwide. So cruise ships, marine ships, yachts, tankers, container ships, the grey water is not really regulated.
So if you're listening and wondering what we're talking about, so I guess a simplified way of saying it is the black water is like sewage on a ship. And so it has to be taken care of properly. And then the gray water is more just like the wastewater. So like if you wash your hands and then the water goes down, it's usually nothing like too bad.
Yeah, MARPOL governs, there's 6 annexes to it. They cover all the marine kind of regulations for waste. So the two that are most specific for this, Annex 4 covers sewage in general, and Annex 5 of MARPOL covers garbage. Annex 6 covers air pollution. So MARPOL is a governing body worldwide for, merchant vessels to comply with.
I saw on your website that there are some very big names that are using your product, which is amazing. Are you able to just sort of speak to some of those names of people that we would recognize, companies that we would recognize?
JW Marriott, Grand Hyatt, the Fairmont, all these kind of hotels, Sheraton. I could go on and on. Hard Rock casinos, Hard Rock stadiums in Florida. Legoland, there's lots and lots of places. We're just expanding massively. Cruise ships has been a huge thing for us last year. We now work with 9 of the largest cruise companies in the world that have our machines on board. So that's been a huge expansion for us over the last kind of 12 months. It's been really exciting. Last week, we just started working with a few very large, all the billionaires' yachts. Wow. So we just sold 2 machines into that industry last week. So that's another, avenue we're going down, and I'm really excited to get into that as well, because I worked in private yachts for a couple of years. I know the issues they have with food waste as well. It's very difficult for them. Big private yachts out at anchor a lot of the time, that piles up on board. So giving them a solution is great. And, we're just seeing growth everywhere. We're starting now to go into, more remote camps. And then this year I've been contacted by some heli skiing lodges.
Nice.
And you really don't realize, I didn't realize the problems they have, because they have to actually helicopter their waste in and out.
Wow.
So every, 2 days, they're actually physically taking a helicopter to bring the waste in and out. It's crazy, So it's been really exciting working with them. And, they can't do anything like composting, because a lot of these places, there's a lot of wildlife that would attract bears. And so they need a solution to treat on site. So that's been, really exciting for us as well. So that's the kind of, really anywhere with your food, we can treat it, and that's the beauty of the machines, is they literally start, as small as a household dishwasher. And then we have our LFC 1000, which is probably the size of a small car, a little bit taller. And then we've seen such demand for the LFC 1000 that we're now developing an LFC 2000. So basically denotes that it can process a nominal capacity around, that would be 2,000 kilos of food waste in a day, so 2 tons.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we're just constantly just more and more demand, which is great, and just building bigger and bigger machines and having the full spectrum, being able to go from a very small dishwasher size that can fit pretty much anywhere, all the way up to these large commercial machines, that we're seeing putting into, maybe, for example, airports that, have a pretty horrendous amount of food waste, to be honest. It's quite shocking, the amount of waste that's generated. So we're really happy to be able to offer these kind of people a solution,
And then what do you do with the gray water when, like, let's say an airport puts one in, and then do they just put the gray water down the drain? Or
the gray water, really, if you think it's similar, it's what that comes out your kitchen sinks, what comes out your dishwasher, all these, the floor drains, and we just tie into that same kind of drain. And it's a nutrient-rich grey water. The first machine I ever installed, it blew me away when I saw what was coming out. I was, physically seeing it is something else. You don't, you can watch videos and you can go on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, but until you physically see it, and then you take a sample and you're like, holy smokes, this is, this is really exciting, Mm-hmm. So so it can be used, that's basically where it plumbs into most of the time. We do see some facilities starting to use it back into their gardens. So that's really the end goal there, because then I love the idea, and it's also into vegetable gardens. So they're really returning the whole cycle, it's kind of closing the loop. So you're taking water, putting it into food waste, digesting it, then what comes out gets re-fed back into plants to help them grow, and it just completely closes that cycle up. So that's kind of what we do with the water that comes out of it. So it's that's a kind of general overview.
Yeah, it would kind of be organic, which is good, which a lot of people like. And if you're putting, like, let's say fish bones and like some meat in there and then some veggies and stuff, then you'd get that, like, I think it's the phosphorus, right? That's the middle number in fertilizers. So you'd be getting, like, the blood and bone meal that a lot of people get.
Yeah, exactly. And we can handle, the machines, you can't handle large bones. We're still digging up dinosaur bones, so they've been around for a while. So, but fish bones, chicken bones, all that type of thing, no problem at all. Obviously people don't eat that, but the machines have no problem processing that. It takes a little bit longer. That might be on the higher end of 24-hour process to digest all them. But we have machines in fish processing plants that's all they're fed is fish. And they churn away 24/7 with no problem. So it's really quite amazing.
That's awesome, because I saw that video actually on your website, powernot.ca. You can see kind of the process, and I have some organic fish waste as well. So usually we just use horse manure because it's package free, but I do have a little bit of fish waste just for my indoor plants, like for herbs and stuff, so I don't have to bring horse manure into my house. I guess they both smell just as bad, but it's a wonderful, wonderful.
Your neighbors probably wouldn't love it.
What's that?
Your neighbors probably wouldn't love it.
Yeah. It smells kind of funny, but it's really a sought after fertilizer. And then also I just was thinking, well, you're saying like these northern camps that you have to helicopter into. You're right. If you have this compost for like fish, you're going to be attracting bears. And we always said, a fed bear is a dead bear, because once they learn that there's a food source, they're not just going to go away. They're just going to keep coming back. And so you're probably saving lives of like some wildlife as well, right? By not having to have those compost piles and attracting all of those things.
Yeah, I'd never really, it's a nice way of thinking about it. Actually, I'd never really thought of that. But yeah, you're right. You know, you kind of think of just the bears, you know, attacking people, but yeah, it's the other way around. If they keep, you know, like you say, if they keep returning to the same area, then yeah, they're going to end up, you know, having to get, taken care of. So yeah, it's another positive for us, you know.
You're in British Columbia, aren't you? Is that where you live?
Yes.
Yeah. When I lived there, I had a bear break into my vehicle because I had some laundry soap and some cereal in there. So it broke in. There was fur all over the broken window. And then the same week, it broke into our house. So it came right in and just took our kitchen and tore it apart and ate all the food and turned on the water and opened the freezer and everything. So yeah, it was a pretty big deal. So I'm fairly aware of bears trying to get human food and, the unfortunate consequences of what happens to that. So it's really neat to think about these remote places taking care of their food waste kind of properly and responsibly. And then I think I saw on your website something about how putting these machines on ships will help reduce their plastic. And I'm not sure how that would work, but when I was in the Navy, I saw the chefs and they would dump buckets of food waste just right off the back of the ship, because you're allowed to do that. It's just, eggshells, broccoli stems, things like that. However, there were plastic little twist ties. There were rubber bands. Like one time I saw a yogurt container go overboard. And is that why it cuts back on plastic waste? Just because cooks are no longer dumping the food waste directly into the ocean?
Yeah, so what normally happens if you take a large standard commercial cruise ship is they have transportation systems to bring the food waste throughout the vessel to one central area. Mm-hmm. So that can be done normally through vacuum, or it can be done through a process where they pump the kind of food waste slurry throughout the ship and you feed it, all the time. But it basically runs through a small grinder and comminates the food waste. So the problem with that is, like you say, it's a fast-paced environment. There's a lot of people. And once you're pushing the food waste down into these grinders and into these vacuum transfer systems, it's very difficult to, once they're in there, if there's any plastic that's in there by mistake, it's almost impossible to get it out as such, or very difficult. So what the digesters do is they have a 0.8 millimeter stainless steel grid in the bottom of the machine. So, your microplastics are considered 5 mil and under. So basically with the 0.8 mil grid in the bottom of these machines, even if plastic goes in by accident, and, it's not done deliberately, no. This is a human error. It's life, everyone makes mistakes, and no matter how hard you try, there's always going to be little, small things that get through. It's the same if you're, whatever waste process you do at home, there's going to be, now and again, there's going to be small slip-ups in, how you handle everything. So on the cruise ships with the digesters fitted, that grid on the bottom, the stainless steel grid, ensures that nothing can come out of the machine. So that's a huge benefit for them, because even if they do have, they're very, very strict guidelines now. There's much more focus on this over the last couple of years. There's a huge amount of effort to stop plastic getting into the oceans, and also, to get away from a lot of disposable plastic on cruise ships. So, there's a huge drive for it. It's massive. So with these machines installed as well, it really means even if there is a small slip up, if somebody drops, like you say, a small buttercup or a straw, things like this, that they will just stay in the digester and they won't be digested, they won't be eaten, and it's impossible for them to leave the machine. So once a week, you literally stop the machine and then just pick out any kind of foreign objects that shouldn't be there. And the thing about it as well is it educates people a bit. I've been on a lot of the ships, doing follow-up visits, checking the machines, and they really see over a time, the supervisors for areas, if you see one machine with more and more plastic in it, the supervisors can say, hey guys, we need to be doing our segregation a bit better. We need to be checking things up. And then, at the end of the day, it's still, even if there is slip-ups, it stops any plastic getting into the sea. So that's one of the huge benefits of it, because, we have to be doing something to stop all the plastic that's going into the ocean, because it's a huge problem. These machines really help with that. So that's something we're really proud of, that, we can make a bit of a difference.
That's amazing. Were you mentioning that you are working with cannabis waste as well? Because if I will give you a warning, if you're listening from other countries, it is legal now in Canada to grow cannabis, and it's a big supplier of like health products for Canadians. So can you tell me a little bit about the cannabis industry waste?
Yeah, sure. So we've been working on a cannabis machine for handling waste for just come up to a year now. We had to do a ton of R&D because the hemp material is very, very fibrous. It's a kind of fascinating plant, how tough it is, how strong it is, and to process the waste it's difficult. So Health Canada has very strict requirements to what has to be, regulated and non-regulated cannabis waste. Mm-hmm. So the regulated cannabis waste under Health Canada means that it has to be destroyed so that it cannot have any further use. I'm not going to get into the politics of, the leaves, there is nothing in them, nobody will be able to do anything with them, but they still, under Health Canada, have to be regulated and destroyed. So
does that mean you can't just put them in a compost pile outside of the facility?
No, they have to be destroyed before that. So they can do some types of traditional composting, but a lot of the places we've been working with, the traditional style composting, they have to shred it first to make it into very small sizes. So you have to use a shredder. The shredders gum up, they jam up all the time. They're very, very labor intensive.
Yeah.
Then once you put it into a shredder, they have to put it into, say, drums. They then fill the drums with vinegar and start to mix all that up. Then they leave them to sit for 2 weeks, and then they have to hike these huge big drums out into the middle of the field and dump all the, waste out of there. So it's really, that's not a great method. It's very time consuming. It causes a lot of problems. It's just a headache. Then you have other methods prescribed, which are really bad, is to mix it with kitty litter that you use for your cats.
What? Okay.
Yeah, it's you can read it online. It's what the government have said is the best way to go. And you mix it all with kitty litter so that people can't obviously use it, and then you dump it in the landfill.
Okay.
So it just doesn't work. You're buying, hundreds of kilos of kitty litter to make a perfectly good organic waste, and then you have to truck it out and dump it in a landfill. So we, like I say, we've been working for up to a year now. We finally kind of perfected the machine. It's running really well. We've got a couple of machines operating in British Columbia that we're really excited about. Yeah, it's been a real success story for us, and the guys love it because there's no time involved. So they literally just open the hatch and they just throw the leaves, some of the small stems in, and it just takes care of all their waste. And we're again looking to close a loop in that whole cycle. So the next facility we're fitting a machine in, we're going to be looking at returning the effluent through a basic sand filter just to take out any loose sediment and return that water back into the crop.
Wow.
So you would just be taking all your cannabis waste, adding some water and enzymes, exiting the machine, and then it would run through a very basic filter and then go back into the crop. So that's the end goal. That's where we want to get to, because then you literally have a complete closed loop system that is just, and you're returning your water back into the crop, because that's where we want to get to. That's where we're going to get to, and I'm really excited about that as well, to be able to help that industry. So it's just another great expansion for us, and it's almost every month we get into another avenue, or we look into more research in other areas, and it just keeps going and going and going. There's a lot of stuff I can't even really talk about due to NDAs and stuff. We're working with a lot of other companies, and yeah, it's just been a great time for us. Even during the last couple of months with this, the COVID stuff that's going on in the world, we're still seeing huge demand for the product, and we've got a big backlog of machines we got to build. But that's a good problem to have.
Are you public?
No, we're a private company.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one thing before I ask my next question, because I'm just thinking about the cannabis industry and like how much plastic they use. So if a company has your machine and is doing that, returning the nutrients back to the soil and doing the closed loop, and they had returnable containers, like where you just send in your containers back, whether those be plastic containers with the dried product in it, or they have all different sorts of containers for oils and that sort of thing. So if those products were going back and being sanitized and then reused, then it would be amazing, because I'm kind of worried about all the plastic that's being used in that industry as well. But I think there's just so many other problems that the cannabis industry is dealing with, like with legal issues, and it's been tough, I think, with a lot of health regulations and stuff. So maybe that'll be a project for one of the companies, later on when they get everything figured out. But I think that would be nice to see. And how did you get into sustainability? So you said your background was on ships. Was this like, were you interested in the ocean and got interested in, waste going into the ocean that way? Or like, how did you become a sustainable business person?
Basically, I worked in cruise ships for a long time. I worked a small amount of time in the private yacht industry as well. And then around 2 or 3 years ago, I get contacted by a kind of old friend of mine, and asked me to basically look into a lot of research for engineering systems and new products and, new technology to help cruise ships. So I was 50-50, I enjoyed sailing, I enjoyed being on ships, but I'm always looking for a new challenge. So I always enjoy getting, pushed and looking into new technology, something that's very interesting. So I took the job and I spent almost 2 years just researching new technology, new systems, and it was fascinating. The more and more I got into it, the more and more I enjoyed the positive aspect of what we were doing. And that's basically how I got into it. And then I met, Ian, who is the founder and president of Paramount. And, we got along well, and I just fell in love with the product. As a lot of people do, and it's been great. We're just growing and growing, and you feel you're doing good, and that's a really nice thing to have in a job, that you feel that you are making a difference. So that's basically how I got involved with Paramount and how I got involved with the environment a bit more, and trying to just do little bits to help here and there, even at home. We try and do small things, just to make a difference.
That's awesome. Has anyone ever bought one of the smaller machines that are the size of a dishwasher for their own homes?
We have a very small machine that you could put into your home, but it's really not cost effective. It's, there's a lot of technology involved, these machines, the cloud drive, you can monitor the machine 24/7 from anywhere in the world, from your phone, your tablet, your laptop. You can see exactly everything that's happening. You can see all the graphs, the trends, how much CO2 you're diverting from the landfills. So there's a ton of technology involved. So for the average household, it's really not cost effective to fit one of these machines. They're not ridiculously expensive, but people are, for a small house, it's not really something that would be, too suitable. We are looking to put into production one of our really small machines again. And, that is something that we're bringing that back into production, especially for the smaller yachts. So we've had a lot of interest from kind of small to medium-sized yachts with maybe about 10 people on board. So a really small machine there would work great for them. And,
Awesome. I don't think that a household would produce enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the stuff you can do at home, your home compost and stuff, the home recycling, we can, we can do stuff fairly easily at home. We have options with having, the Canadian average for a household is 0.4 kilograms of food waste a day. So that's the average for a Canadian household. So that's kind of easy to compost at home if you want to go that route.
Yeah, it takes us a while to fill up a bucket, and we're completely all about like fresh food and fruits and veggies. So I think we eat a lot, and but we also have chickens and a dog, so they get a lot of the scraps too. So not even a whole lot makes it into the compost. It sounds like the businesses that buy the machines are having like a very quick ROI, so a return on investment, and sometimes within a few months, I think I read.
Some companies, we contact them, they're paying, $3,000-4,000 a month.
Wow.
To get rid of their food waste, depending on where they are.
Wow.
So, we, on average, I would say 12 to 18 months is your ROI on a machine. It's not just the ROI, you're doing so much better for the environment. But it takes away any kind of manual handling. It takes carrying stuff into back alleys late at night, and the whole, even in the local town where I live, in the summer, the small compost bins that sit in back alleys, they just stink, they're disgusting. And they're only getting picked up every 2 weeks. They're attracting rats, things like this. So, the ROI is, of course, important. Everyone's still in business in places and needs to justify things. So, the ROI has been great as well. It's like I say, but I would say most places on average is 12 to 18 months and the machine is paid off.
Yeah, I think that's a great handle to take is like, we can save you money and the environment, because sometimes when you approach people to save the environment, they're just so busy running their companies and maybe they're doing a very good job. And, it's not another thing they can handle because some people have a lot on their plate and they don't want to go out of business by spending, a crazy amount of money on something that's just going to keep costing them money. But if you can save the money and have a product that is, really good for the environment, then that's definitely the way to go, I think. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. And everywhere we go, I love it when I go into places and people have named the digester, like Derek or something, like Derek the digester or the gobbler or something, when people are doing that they like the machine. There's certain machines, that people probably have in the kitchen that they are galleys and they just detest them, and they're like, oh no. And certainly in cannabis facilities, the shredders are just a nightmare because they usually break down every half hour. They have problems with them. They jam up. You have to clean the teeth on them all the time, strip them down, rebuild them, and people hate them. Whereas, we walk into that, I can't tell you some of the names that they call them, but they give them some names. It's usually some of the bigger people in the buildings, and they say, because he eats so much, but they're joking about with stuff. But it's great, when we hear that people really love the machine. It's always nice to hear.
Yeah, that's super amazing. Well, I like this a lot, and I was so happy to discover your company. I think I came across you on Instagram. So is it just Power Knot on Instagram? I think that is.
Power Knot Canada, and we also have the LCD, the Liquid Cannabis Digester. So that's our two Instagram kind of handles.
Nice, and then it's PowerKnot.ca, and that's KNOT. So Power.
That's the Canadian website. Then you have the main Power Knot website as well in Silicon Valley, is where we're based. So we do all our manufacturing, our R&D, assembly is all in Silicon Valley.
Oh, that's great. So, there's a big Buy American kind of movement going on right now, and over half of our listeners are Americans. So that's good. That kind of ties right into the times of COVID and people trying to help American companies and buying American, and it's the same in every country. I think it's good to support local when you can. We certainly talk about that a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've just moved into a new facility just because of the expansion, so we keep on growing. So we're actually right beside the Tesla factory in Silicon Valley. So wow. We've got a new 30,000 square foot facility there. So we have our main R&D center there, and then also all our assembly plant is there as well. So that's I'm down there every month when the border reopens. Yeah. I'm down there every month, and it's just great. And we're constantly evolving, constantly, improving. We don't just sit still and just be like, okay, yeah, we built this. We're always like, okay, what's the next thing we can improve? How can we make this better? How can we, I'm building bigger machines and then revisiting, some of the smaller machines that we had built before and seeing if, we're going to put them back into production. So there's constantly changes all the time. So it's really exciting to be part of that.
Are you in the Tesla building as well? Do you have a machine in there?
We don't. No, that's disappointing. Yeah, we should.
Maybe one day, because I'm sure they have a cafeteria or something, I guess, right? They'd have to feed their workers.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in there, so maybe need to give Elon a call.
That's very cool. You're in a famous spot. Awesome. Well, Dave, this has been great, and I really love your machine, and I'm so happy to see it in so many hotels that we know, and even our own Department of National Defence in Canada, they have the machines, which is very, very good.
Yeah, Canadian Prison Services. We get the Canadian military. That's been really exciting for us as well.
That is very exciting. So hats off to those Canadian government departments for dealing with their food waste responsibly. That's great. And thank you for joining us. That was David Hill from Vernon, BC. He works for the company PowerNot. They're building food waste digesters in Silicon Valley that are helping to solve our worldwide issues with food waste.
Change starts now.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast.